We are live. We are live. Thank God we are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. It's going to be a big show. It's going to be a long show. We are going to be here all night. There's so much to talk about. So much to talk about. I apologize for last night. We had our internet go completely down. It was a complete mess. I apologize profusely, like I always do when something goes wrong here at Peek Around the Corner. But welcome into the house that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kirk Gowdy Avenue. Kevin Warren is out. Who will be in? Nice to see you, Cornelius Green. Praise the Lord, Greg. Yes, praise the Lord. I appreciate every time you come into the house, Cornelius. Matt Higgins, nice to see you. Wow, yes, thanks for doing the show. I appreciate you coming in here, Matt. Pete Golden out at Bama. What is going on? I don't even know what's going on. I need you guys to tell me what is going on in college football. Golding's going to Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin, they're giving him $2 million a year. Holy smokes. Cornelius Green, if Jim Phillips becomes Big Ten commissioner, I'm worried the Big Ten will not be innovated anymore. I kind of share your opinion, Mr. Green. I kind of share your opinion. Let's go through it all. I am going to do a monologue, as you all know. I'm going to do a monologue. I'm going to try to shorten it up because I know you all get tired of me yapping. I want to get to your comments. That's what this show is all about. Your comments direct where we go with the show. West Virginia guy, nice to see you in the house. I love the Mountaineers. I love them. I'm a little depressed about what's going to happen for this season. I love the Mountaineers. Any Pac-12 TV deal updates? No, there is no updates. And why isn't there an update? Why hasn't the deal been done yet? First, let's talk about Kevin Warren. Let's talk about what's going on in the Big Ten. But we're going to talk about a lot of things here. Tommy Eichenberg back with the Buckeyes. Jaden Rashada, what's going on at Florida. TCU offensive coordinator Garrett Riley is going to be Clemson's offensive coordinator. Holy smokes. We're going to go through the Big Ten possible candidates. But first of all, J.B. Bruin. I saw that. The great wide receiver from Cal to UCLA. Wonder how much the Bruins are in Calamoni. I love that term, Calamoni. Thank you, J.P. Bruin, for putting that in. Yeah, I don't know, man. UCLA's got it going as well. But there's so much to get to. I love that Calamoni. Kevin Warren. Okay? Kevin Warren. He got off to a bad start. Now, I'm not going to say anything you guys already don't know. I might give you a little bit more background on it. But Kevin Warren became the Big Ten commissioner. And his name came out of nowhere. He wasn't on anybody's hot board list. I've got my hot board list for the next Big Ten commissioner. This is 1.0. I want you all to put down your thoughts on who you think will be on the hot board list. Give me a name. Give me 2. Give me 3 names. But Kevin Warren's name didn't pop up anywhere until he got the job. He came from the Minnesota Vikings organization. He led the franchise in their new stadium. He was highly successful at his job. He became the Big Ten president. Lots of credentials. None of it in the college sports space. But the Big Ten the Big Ten presidents were looking at someone who would lead the Big Ten in their new media deal. What happened? We got a worldwide pandemic, and he didn't handle it correctly. He did not communicate correctly. He did not get everyone to buy in on his decision-making process. It was a complete failure of leadership. I can tell you there wasn't hardly any trust left right after the first 18 months, the first year of Kevin Warren's existence. How do I know this? Because, Daniel, nice to see you in the house. Because we at Peek Around the Corner at Flag Umpire, we were given information on March 31st to put out some tweets. We were part of the soft push from Big Ten boosters. You can read about it in our pinned tweet at Flag Empire. Los Angeles Times did an article on us. But what happened is USC called the Big Ten to attempt to get into the Big Ten Conference. It was leaked out of the city of Los Angeles. It went into the ears of some big-time Big Ten people that sit on the money perch. We were given the information. We were given the information because they wanted us, and there were other people out there, but mainly us on Twitter to put out there to say, look, USC called the Big Ten, and the Big Ten people wanted to happen, and there was no trust in Kevin Warren, but people wanted Kevin Warren to know that they knew, right? It's a long, drawn-out story you can read about in Los Angeles Times article, August 20th, about what we did here at Peek Around the Corner. There was no trust with Kevin Warren. The people in the Big Ten didn't end around Kevin Warren to make sure that this expansion happened in the Big 12. I'm telling you, as I'm sitting here talking to you all, this is all true. The distrust was enormous. Now, having said all that, Kevin Warren was for the expansion of USC, UCLA. Even more importantly than that, and we're going to circle back to it in this monologue before I get to your great comments, Fox Sports was all aboard grabbing the city of Los Angeles in total. USC, UCLA, they both called the Big Ten independently. We're going to circle back to that because I think, as I look at my hot board list, there might be some changes on that list as we go on to hot board 2.0, 3.0. but let me just get through my monologue and then I'll explain. So Kevin Warren, people learned quickly. We learned quickly. We put it out there on June 30th when it was announced that UCLA and USC were going to be part of the Big Ten. We put it out immediately at Flag Empire that Kevin Warren had more targets. That it was Oregon, Washington, of course, Notre Dame, and Stanford. He wanted it to happen. He did not want two universities on an island in the Pacific Coast all alone. That was not his vision. He wanted to turn it into an NFL model. We said it over and over again. We also reported in July that there was going to be a go or no go for launch for further Big Ten expansion between August 15th and October 15th. And it's exactly what happened. And it was a no-go for launch. Kevin Warren did not build consensus. He didn't have the votes. He couldn't swing the votes. There were some other people in the Big Ten that wanted Oregon and Washington. We were told this. But he did not have the votes. Now, here's the thing. Whoever becomes the Big Ten commissioner, I think the roadmap is sort of set for further Big Ten expansion, where that roadmap goes. And we're going to get into it here on this live show. So buckle up, brace for impact, don't go anywhere. If you go somewhere, come back. Okay, because we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of what we think is going to happen. But there is more issues at stake than just possible further Big Ten expansion. We have other issues at stake here in the Big Ten that's going to have ramifications for the SEC, just like when SEC does something, it has ramifications throughout college football. Will the Big Ten go to 10 conference games? What will the scheduling be like? And the target of going divisionless, is that still the pathway for the Big Ten? Is that what they're looking to do? And whoever is named the Big Ten commissioner, hired by the Big Ten presidents, is going to give us a clear indication which way the Big Ten is going. I happen to believe that not everything in Kevin Warren's vision was flushed down the drain by the Big Ten presidents. Some of it was. Some of it wasn't. Okay? Now, for Oregon and Washington, their attempts to get into the Big Ten, and boy, did they make the attempt. And as we said way back on episode 52, go check our YouTube channel. Their episodes are ranked 1 through 130. Go to episode 52. We said that the people of the Oregon Money Perch said if we don't make it in, we're going to keep swinging years down the road. Same thing with Washington. They're going to keep swinging because, and we're all going to know why after we see that Pac-12 media deal. It's not going to be pretty. They're going to keep swinging to try to get into the Big Ten. But Kevin Warren not being the Big Ten commissioner anymore is not good news for either of those universities to get into the Big Ten anytime soon. But the future belongs to the future. We don't quite know where we're going in the Big Ten, but I think we have a decent idea of what is going to be attempted. I'll get to your comments. I'll get to your comments in a second. We had this up. We had this hot board list up moments after Kevin Warren, after it was announced that Kevin Warren was out as the Big Ten commissioner, that he took the Chicago Bears president job. We had episode 130. We dropped it immediately. If you go back and look at the timestamp, immediately. Gene Smith, number 1. Jim Phillips, number 2. Mark Silverman, number 3. All three of those candidates for us are clearly the top 3. Other names are going to jump in there, right? You got Jen Heppel, the Patriot League commissioner. She's been an associate director, athletic director of the conference, Big Ten Conference 2 different times. Her name is going to be popping up there. We got Kerry Kenny, the senior vice president of the Big Ten. I think his name is going to be popping up in there in the hot board list. And there are other names. Val Ackerman, the Big East commissioner, that Mr. Daniel Montcastle has said it could be one of those. But I think these are legitimate. These are the top 3. And we have been talking with people. Those are the top 3. Gene Smith is going to be asked if he's interested, and we'll see if he's interested in taking on this new and huge challenge. Gene Smith has the respect of the Big Ten Conference. Now, let's say Gene Smith is named the Big Ten commissioner. You know, Gene Smith has made it pretty clear the Buckeyes are not looking to expand out west, especially if Notre Dame is not in the picture. He's made it perfectly clear he wants to go divisionless. So I think, right, that's always been the chalk. For the last few years, that's always been the favorite. Conference is going divisionless. Gene Smith is willing to talk about the conference going to 10 conference games. But he wants 9 conference games. If you see Gene Smith being named as the commissioner, I think we're going to go as we all think we're going in the Big Ten. 9 conference games, 16 teams, going divisionless, and probably a compromise in the scheduling of having how many rival games do each school get. I think Gene Smith will bend over backwards to make sure that Penn State may only have 1 rival game while Iowa keeps 3 rival games. Something to that extent. That's what I believe Gene Smith would mean if he becomes the commissioner of the Big Ten. It's also possible that Gene Smith could be named the interim commissioner of the Big Ten. And then say, look, either I get the job or I don't, but I will be in the position if you need me for a short term. Jim Phillips. A lot of kind of conversations around what would a Jim Phillips mean if the Big Ten president selected him. First of all, the athletic directors that worked with Jim Phillips, when Jim Phillips was the athletic director at Northwestern, they love him. They respect him. If the athletic directors could have named the Big Ten commissioner previously, it would have been Jim Phillips and not Kevin Warren. But we know that the presidents are the ones who vote. It would have been Jim Phillips. Jim Phillips has spent his time as the ACC commissioner with no cards to play. He doesn't have any. We here at Peek Around the Corner, I do not talk about possible ACC expansion. There is nothing to talk about. Basically, there's this possibility that the ACC might go to non-equal revenue sharing or some sort of revenue sharing within the conference based on performance. Jim Phillips doesn't have any cards to play because of that TV contract. That's not his fault. Because of that long-term grant of rights. They have the ACC network, and for them to get the ACC network, they had to extend the grant of rights from 2027 all the way to 2036. There is nothing he can do in regards to the current media contract or the composition of the ACC conference unless Notre Dame joins the ACC as a full-time member football program. Notre Dame is not going to do that. So Jim Phillips has he has no cards to play. So what has Jim Phillips been discussing? College model, traditional model. He's been throwing all that out there. He wants, and look, a lot of people kind of agree with him. We just listened to Baylor's president, Livingston, talk about how Congress needs to step in and give them the guardrails and give them antitrust. And she went on and on and on. There's a lot of presidents and commissioners that agree with her. I just happen to think the toothpaste is out of the tube. We are going to at least a quasi-employee employer type of status with student athletes. I think that's where we're heading to. I believe that's where Kevin Warren thought we were heading to. And I believe most of the Big Ten presidents, even if they don't like it, know that's where we are heading to. Jim Phillips, I think, is a consensus builder, which the Big Ten definitely needs. We're going to 16 schools in the Big Ten. More diversity than ever. It's so difficult to keep these bigger and bigger sized conferences happy. It's hard to keep them unified. The Big Ten needs a unifier, a consensus builder. Gene Smith is that. Jim Phillips is that. So in some ways, a Jim Phillips hired as the next Big Ten commissioner would signal that, boy, do we need a consensus builder here in Jim Phillips. Now, would Jim Phillips push for, let's say, a conference-wide NIL deal that would pay the student athletes, all of them in the Big Ten Conference, some compensation, NIL compensation, conference-sponsored NIL deal? Would Jim Phillips press and push the envelope for Big Ten to get a deal with sports books across the country so their student athletes get compensated? Would Jim Phillips push for some of that major media money to go directly into the bank accounts of his student athletes? And what would Jim Phillips do about expansion? I'm going to get to that in a second here. Mark Silverman. I do think there is some separation between Gene Smith, Jim Phillips, to Mark Silverman. I've been watching the people that I have talked to, BTM and Associates, have been watching Mark Silverman since the start of his career. He was the Big Ten Network president. He was the right-hand man of Jim Delaney. I need you guys to listen to this. Okay? Mark Silverman then became the president of Fox Sports. We all know about that. Excuse me, I got a cord wrapped around me here. Okay. If Mark Silverman is announced as the Big Ten president, let me put it to you this way. We have said this since forever, that whenever the Big Ten gets done expanding in its conference, for this generation and probably the next generation, whenever that is, at the end of this decade, in the early 2000s, it will end in the East, in the Southeast. We've said that. We talked about it since this episode number 1 of our show. That was always what was going to happen next. It is just like when the Big Ten expanded with number 13 and 14, it was always going to be on the East Coast. So when people talked about why did Big Ten take Rutgers and Maryland, because those were the two schools that made themselves available to be poached. If it would have been Virginia, North Carolina, they'd be in the Big Ten. It wasn't going to be Kansas. It wasn't going to be Colorado. It wasn't going to be anybody in the Midwest. It wasn't going to be anybody out in the Pacific Coast. Jim Delaney wanted 13 and 14 to be East Coast editions because of demographics, because of TV money, because of the East Coast exposure, on and on and on, because of Penn State wanting some members out there in Ohio State. It was always going to be that. Additions going to 20 school conference is going to include at least 1 or 2 southeastern schools or on the East Coast. It's just the way it is. I'll get back to that in a second. Rebecca, thank you so much for your donation, your generosity to the show. Rebecca, Mrs. Husker, I appreciate it. Thank you so very much. And again, to everybody, please smash that like button if you like our content. Subscribe to our channel. Share the video with your family and friends. But please subscribe to our channel because you'll get notified. You'll get notified on your phone or whatever that our show is going live. We really don't ever really know when we're going live, right? Here at Peek Around the Corner. But when it hits, we got to hit. We come on here. We have fun, okay? Thank you, Rebecca, for your generosity. I appreciate it. Okay, so here's the thing. Mark Silverman, Fox Sports, used to be the Big Ten Network. He talked about expansion all the time when he was a Big Ten Network president. Fox Sports wanted the city of Los Angeles because they didn't want ESPN to get into Los Angeles anymore in regards to the highest level of college sports. Just like Big Ten doesn't really have the highest level of college sports. I mean, Fox Sports doesn't have the highest level of college sports when it comes to Texas, the state of Texas, right? They lost Texas. They lost the Big 12. Texas and Oklahoma are going to the SEC. Mark Silverman, Fox Sports. Yes, they're going to have some Big 12 content. Yes, of course, with UCF in Florida. They don't have any in Georgia. They don't have any in North Carolina. They don't have any in Virginia. Mark Silverman, if he becomes the Big Ten commissioner, years down the line, there's going to be nobody who's going to push more for expansion in the Southeast than Mark Silverman. And I got to tell you, even, Gene Smith would do the same thing. Now, we had a story ready to go on December 26th. We held back on it, and we're still going to hold back on it tonight. I'm not going to talk about it, other than to say, when it comes to ACC country, there's a story brewing out there. Keep your eyes and ears open. It's not, this story that I'm talking about is not directly tied to the SEC or the Big Ten. It's within the ACC at this moment. So hang with us at Peek Around the Corner because we're eventually going to talk about it sometime in the spring, before the summer. Okay? But there is a story out there. There's a story out there. December 26th, we came this close from being the next March 31st when we put it out there that USC called the Big Ten. Again, this story I'm talking about isn't directly tied yet to the Big Ten or the SEC. It's within the ACC. That's where the big story is. And as I am not the only one who knows this story. When we put it out there on March 31st that USC called the Big Ten, we put it out there to media people. There's a few of them that said, whoa, he's got something here. A lot of people ignored me, which is fine. They still ignore me, which is fine. But this story is not, I here at Peek Around the Corner, BTM and Associates are not the only ones who have this story. Period. So something is brewing. As it goes back to the Big Ten commissioner list, and that I have on here, I think there are. Let me put it this way. I think I don't know this for a fact. Don't have any intel on this. This is speculation on my part. Okay? Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point, speculation. I think Gene Smith knows what we know at Peek Around the Corner and more. And so does Mark Silverman. I don't know about Jim Phillips, though. Again, so stick with us here at Peek Around the Corner. I think Gene Smith is number one on the board. He's got to be asked if he's interested. I think Jim Phillips is number 2 on the board. I think Mark Silverman is 3 on the board. And there are other candidates lurking. Jen Heppel, I think, is one of them, the commissioner of the Patriot League. I think she's probably number 4. I really do. Give me your names on the list. I'm going to read it. I'm going through your comments right now. Jaden Rashada, what's going on in Florida? Let me know. $13 million for 4 years? Is he going to go to class at Florida? I think his father said he was. It's going back and forth. There's different reports out there. Crazy NIL. When you sign that deal, make sure that you are going to get paid. If you go to class, if you go to school, if you do what you need to do in that NIL contract, make sure it's tight before you agree with it. Tarleton president, Dr. James Hurley. Tarleton president. Tarleton, the school that's part of the ASUN and WAC merger that's going to try to become an FBS conference. He said, we have a goal of July 1st, 2025 to transition to FBS. So yes, those schools that are merging are going to try to become the 11th FBS conference. So he said it. He said it in public. So I say this to the commissioner of the Missouri Valley FCS Conference of North Dakota State, South Dakota State, and South Dakota. Remember, she said just last week, it's absurd that these schools are going to try to become the 11th FBS conference between ASUN and WAC. I don't think they're actually really mean it. I think they're scaling back. No, they're not scaling back. So North Dakota State, South Dakota State, if you really want to be an FBS conference, be in an FBS conference in 2025, 2026, you better start moving on it, because other FCS conferences that don't hold a candle to either one of your schools, they're moving. They want to be part of the gold rush, the battle of 2026. North Dakota State, South Dakota State, are you listening? Maybe you should give MAC Conference a call and don't put all your eggs in the Mountain West Conference basket. It doesn't look like the Mountain West Conference is going to move unless they lose San Diego State. Maybe they'll take 1 or 2 of you. We shall see. So much to get to. We haven't even got to the Colorado's athletic director's comments, but let's get to your comments as quick as I can. Let's go. Here we go. Cornelius Green, praise the Lord. Absolutely. Big Ten school presidents and ADs are mainly stuck in the past and refuse to adapt to change. I don't know about that, Mr. Green. I don't know about that. We're going to have to see who the next Big Ten commissioner is. I don't think Kevin Warren leaving is a comment, is a statement from the Big Ten presidents to say, we reject everything Kevin Warren was trying to do. I don't think that's the case. I think it's a case of distrust. I think it's a case of Kevin Warren going way out there in front of his ski tips before he had a consensus behind him, being way aggressive on expansion. We reported what Kevin Warren wanted to do. I'm sorry to, who is that guy, Genetics? We were absolutely correct on USC. We were absolutely correct on what Kevin Warren wanted to do with their targets. We had the intel. We reported it. We were absolutely correct on the go or no go for launch decision window. And it was a no go for launch. Kevin Warren had a vision. He didn't get the votes. He did not build consensus. The presidents didn't want to go in his direction, and they thought that Kevin Warren should not have spoken so much in public about his plans. But I'm not sure that the Big Ten presidents have rejected everything that Kevin Warren was trying to do, which one of the things includes more compensation for student athletes through direct payments from the conference. Things of that nature. I don't think the Big Ten presidents have rejected that. We shall see. Matt Higgins, lots of news this week, Greg. Thanks for doing the show. Pete Golding out at Bama. Pruitt, Leonard, Garrett Riley to Clemson. Garrett Riley is no longer Lincoln Riley's younger brother. He's a monster. Great offensive coordinator at TCU, won the Broyles Award, and now he's the offensive coordinator for Dabo Swinney at Clemson. I might have to reevaluate my way too early ACC predictions because I have Clemson not winning the ACC championship next year. Of course, I was wrong in 2022. I had North Carolina State, but we'll forget about that. 2023, Clemson, they got a big piece. They got the offensive coordinator to rejuvenate that declining offense there in Clemson. Huge news. Huge. Cornelius Green, if Jim Phillips becomes Big Ten commissioner, I'm worried the Big Ten will not be innovated anymore. Again, we'll see what happens. Jim Phillips, I think some of his communication as the ACC commissioner has to do with the fact he's basically has no cards to play in his hand. Again, West Virginia guy, I have no Pac-12 TV updates. Cornelius Green, I'm not sold on Gene Smith either. Jay Bruin, yes, UCLA got a huge wide receiver today in the transfer portal from California. Kevin Warren got a lot of blame for initially canceling the 2020 season, but the school presidents were in favor of canceling the season. Kevin Warren, the most heat that he got wasn't his decision, it's how he came about his decision. About how he could not defend his decision. His communication to the presidents was bad, to the athletic directors was worse, to the student athletes and their parents were horrific. That's where Kevin Warren lost the trust eventually of the Big Ten presidents. And mainly Kevin Warren and the athletic directors never were connected. He never built their consensus. Kevin Warren is not a consensus builder. He didn't have to be for the Vikings. He made decisions. He's not going to have to be as the president of the Chicago Bears, where the general manager even reports to him. He will be the key decision maker for the Chicago Bears. Okay? Big Ten, 16 schools. 16 schools. Now you got UCLA and USC way out there. Boy, you better need a consensus builder for your next Big Ten commissioner. West Virginia guy Neil Brown will be playing for his job next season. No question. Daniel, Mr. Hoosier. Gene Smith is too old, but would be a safe pick as an interim. I don't want to say Gene Smith is too old. I don't believe in that. I do believe that he may just not want the job. Or he may want, if he wants it, he's number one with a bullet. Because Gene Smith has, first of all, he has the credentials, but he also has the support among the athletic directors. He does. He does. So I got Gene Smith number one. If he declines, if he's not interested, then we're looking at a possible current or former commissioner versus the wild card, Mark Silverman. I think Oliver Luck should be a candidate for the Big Ten commish. Oliver Luck was just hired as a consultant for the ASUN and WAC merger FCS conference that are trying to become the 11th FBS conference. I don't think Oliver Luck is going to be in the picture. Daniel, my money is on Jim Phillips. Then Val Ackerman. Val Ackerman, an historic figure, the commissioner of the Big East. Now, the Big East doesn't have a football conference, but Val Ackerman, I've seen her names. I would put Jen Heppel above that Val Ackerman as number 4, but maybe Val Ackerman would be my number 5. That's a good name, Daniel. Tony, tough Tony. Sports Illustrated said there was plenty of power brokers in the Big Ten that are fine with Kevin Warren leaving. Absolutely. I think power brokers is another term. I use the money perch. It was a crazy time in the spring when no one else was basically aware of what was going on. People were not confident of Kevin Warren. He could never get that trust back. It was, remember I always talk about cloak and dagger. A lot of cloak and dagger in that situation in the Big Ten with Kevin Warren. And now there's cloak and dagger in ACC country. Always remember that. Cloak and dagger. That's the tagline here at Peak Around the Corner. Yes, the school presidents were in favor of canceling the 2020 season. I agree, Cornelius. I agree. But there was a lot of things that happened in and around that decision that Kevin Warren did not handle correctly at all. Daniel said, yes, the presidents made Kevin Warren their scapegoat. Cornelius Green, if Jim Phillips was the Big Ten commish, USC and UCLA are not in the Big Ten today. I think they would be, Cornelius. I think they would be. USC and UCLA, when they called the Big Ten alone, separately, they had the full commitment of the Big Ten presidents right off the bat. The distrust is whether Kevin Warren was going to actually do it. Now, what I would say, what Kevin Warren did, that I don't think Jim Phillips or hardly any other candidate could have replicated, was the deal, the media deal that Kevin Warren got for the Big Ten. You know what? It hasn't hit yet, guys, gals. It hasn't hit yet. What a tremendous media deal that is. We talk about the money gap. The money gap hasn't even started yet. The money that the SEC schools are going to be getting from that SEC deal, the ESPN deal with their Tier 1 rights, when they switch from CBS to ESPN, that money hasn't even come into the SEC coffers yet. The money deal that the Big Ten signed, that starts July 1st of 2023. But the cross-promotional aspect to this Big Ten deal, what Kevin Warren wanted to happen, what he pushed for, was for CBS, NBC, and Fox to cross-promote each other Big Ten games and then have it done on Sundays, 2 spots each on CBS, NBC, and Fox. On Sunday, when you're watching the NFL, you're going to be watching advertisement to say, hey, next Saturday, it's going to be the Buckeyes versus the Hoosiers. You're going to be seeing that advertised all throughout NFL Sunday. For Kevin Warren to get that much money and to get that much exposure was a brilliant job by Kevin Warren. So it's not all bad. It's not all good. There's nuance. There's context to everything, right? I don't think Jim Phillips would have replicated the great work that Kevin Warren did. And again, it's not going to be felt until 2023. And then especially when 2024 hits with USC and UCLA joining the conference. Jesse Wilson, evening everyone. Good evening, Jesse Wilson from the great state of Alabama, Mr. Husky. Yes, Greg, you were holding on to that information for a while before making it known. I was lucky enough that you confided for me in that information. Well, I had to confide in someone, Daniel. I thank you for taking that information. I also confided in a couple of media companies out there, and they took it and they ran with it. I know USC 247, a month before when June 30th was announced, they were having podcasts talking about look for USC and Big Ten, look for USC and Big Ten. we were the ones providing USC 247 that information, and Minnesota 247 and other people. So why we were tangled in all of that, the number one motive that we were given that information and then we were followed by the Big Ten is because of the distrust of Kevin Warren. That's why we were brought into that. That's why we got the intel of that. So we know anyone who follows Peek Around the Corner, anyone who comes on our show in the comments section, all you guys and gals that are in here right now, you all know this isn't come as a surprise. Kevin Warren, distrust, Big Ten presence. We've known this since the spring when we got hit with this incredible information. And then we all know together as a community, we know that Kevin Warren pushed hard for more expansion. Pushed hard out for the Pacific Coast. And we know as a community, we know that there was a go or no go decision window. We reported to y'all, and sure enough, Kevin Warren got the message that no way the Big Ten presidents were going for more expansion. And it was over for the near future. Long-term future, Big Ten's going to expand. So, Big Ten presidents and ADs are stuck in their way. Cornelius Green, Daniel Cornelius, that's why Kevin Warren is leaving. Jim Phillips is tooling with the AD and chancellors. Cornelius Green, somebody is throwing out garbage as always. Matt Higgins, NFL is the motto, is the future. Better to lead than follow. Daniel, genetics is watching Greg's videos, and then this. Man, he is something else. Look, when people can't give out their true names, and they hide behind an icon or whatever, or an avatar, that should give you the first inclination of, what they're all about. They're just, we here at Peek Around the Corner, we agree with each other, we disagree with each other, we have fun. You guys make me sing sometimes. We're rooting for different teams. We're crying. We're cheering. But the trolling, you can tell the trolling, there is no trolling at Peek Around the Corner comments. Right? Just recognize the trolls out there that are just trying to get a response. They'll say whatever they need to do to get a response because that's what they're all about. But we don't do here at Peek Around the Corner. We honestly agree and disagree with each other. We have fun. We talk about everything in college football because we love everything in college football. But you notice there's no trolling going on. I'm not just saying something, get a response. You guys are not just saying, well, you guys joke around with me a lot, and that's fine. That is fine. Roy, if Oregon is still swinging, it means Big Ten told them maybe later. Look, Oregon and Washington had preliminary meetings with the Big Ten. This was reported independently from us. Reported by Brett McMurphy, great reporter for Action Network. It was reported by CBS Sports and Dennis Dodd. So anytime you get the preliminary meetings, you put it out there. You've put it out there, right? Sometimes this stuff takes years to get done. Rutgers had been talking to Big Ten for over a decade before it happened. So we don't know. We honestly don't know. I do believe, though, at first blush, this is not good news for Oregon and Washington to get into the Big Ten, especially in the near-term future. And I know the Big Ten wants to take one or two schools at least from the Southeast, and of course, Notre Dame. And we're going to be hearing more about that later. Yeah, Oregon's going to keep swinging. So is Washington. Tony, Kevin Warren was hired 3 years ago. Did you know there are 12 new leaders at the 14 schools since then? Ronnie Brown, Nebraska is retiring in June. That is a lot of turnover. It's an extreme amount of turnover. Absolutely, especially in the Big Ten. Great comment, Tony. Absolutely. And that is the great unknown, right? Of who the Big Ten presidents are going to vote for, because all of them are so new. All of them are so new. And I'm leaning into who do they know? Who do they know? These new Big Ten presidents, right? They know Gene Smith, and the athletic directors know Jim Phillips. And they all know Mark Silverman. And we know that a lot of times it's who do you know and who knows you. Kevin Warren, he was the exception to that rule. They reached out. They grabbed diversity. They got a guy from the NFL. And he did a great job with the media deal. But I really think the Big Ten, the challenges are immense. They need a consensus builder. You saw, it's just not the Big Ten, man. It's look at Greg Sankey at SEC. Greg Sankey, great leader, the most powerful commissioner in all of sports. The SEC, the most powerful conference in all of college sports. Big Ten number 2. SEC, Greg Sankey. When that Oklahoma and Texas deal, when he got that done, man, he kept that a tight secret. He kept that a tight secret because he was afraid of what was going to happen. He unleashed that information at the very last moment to get the presidents to vote. Texas A&M was so upset because they thought they had an informal veto power over that. And they didn't. Just like USC does not have a informal veto power on who the next 17th and 18th school is going to be in the Big Ten. It's hard to keep these big conferences aligned. That's why realignment never sleeps, okay? It never sleeps. It's hard. It's difficult. I think the Big Ten is going to have to get someone who has experience in working with these large groups of universities and trying to mold a consensus. Gene Smith has been doing that for years. Jim Phillips, ex-athletic director at Northwestern, has been doing that for years. And Mark Silverman, he's an apple from a different tree. If Mark Silverman, if he's named, if Mark Silverman is named the new Big Ten commissioner, he's not there to twiddle his thumbs. He's got a great job right now. And nobody knows the Big Ten, the values of the schools and the values of schools outside the Big Ten, the values of going from 9 to 10 conference games, the values of scheduling. Nobody knows the value of the Big Ten more than Mark Silverman, and that includes Gene Smith and Jim Phillips. No slight on those two gentlemen, or on Jen Heppel, or on Val Ackerman, or anybody else. Nobody knows the value, the dollar bills that are underneath each pillowcase than Mark Silverman. If he wants the job, if they call him and says, yeah, I'm interested. This guy was the right-hand man of Jim Delaney. He built the Big Ten network. He said, Mark Silverman, well, I shouldn't say that. I was about to say something I won't. Mark Silverman, he knows everything about the Big Ten. He knows the players. The decision makers in the Big Ten. Okay, let's get back to your comments. Lots of comments. I'm sorry. I'm going to try to. We're going to be here. We're going to be here as long as it takes because this is huge news. The ramifications on who the new Big Ten commissioner is. It's going to have ripple effects throughout all of college sports. We also can talk about Garrett Riley becoming the new offensive coordinator of Clemson. That is gigantic. I mean, we didn't even talk about the Colorado's athletic director, Rick George. What he said the other day, I don't know. I won't talk about it unless I get a question on it because we have so much to discuss. So many comments I got to get through. Again, I'm going to have to skip some comments. You want to make sure I bring up your comment and do a deep dive on it. You can just do a small donation to the channel. I'm going to have to start skipping here. Cornelius Green, Florida State, Miami, Georgia Tech, North Carolina should be the targets of the Big Ten. Daniel says Florida State is in play for sure. That might have been hinted at. Mike Mannix, nice to see you in the house, Mike. Please no Jim Phillips. If you want to send the Big Ten back by 30 years, then he's your man. Heck to the no. We have a big Jim Phillips no on the board. Mike, son of Sarek, will the Big Ten have a decision by March or April, or will they need to hire someone on an interim basis asking for a friend, not named Delaney? I don't know. You know, I think the interim commissioner of the Big Ten, I think that's in play. I really do think it's in play. But I don't know what the timetable. Have they mentioned when they expect the new Big Ten commissioner to take place? I haven't heard that. But I think the interim tag on somebody is probably in play. There's so many things going on in college sports. There's so much potential of change, of reform. You got to get somebody in that chair pretty quick, I think. Daniel, Murphy knows he hinted at something before letting it go. He mentioned Miami, Florida, Florida State, and others. Skull Ducky, what kind of super chat we're going to have to come up with to drop the story? The story will be dropped. At some point, Skull Ducky, the story will be dropped. We had to stand down. We continue to stand down. But when it drops, buckle up, brace for impact. LFG, Goober Dabble poached a skilled OC from a completely different part of the country. That's huge news. Gigantic news. Clemson, they might be rejuvenated, ladies and gentlemen. We shall see. Daniel, if Phillips does know, then he better be applying for the job. No comment. Gene Smith was my number one guess. Is Connie going on the board? No, Connie's not going on the board. Condoleezza Rice is wrapped up in the NFL with the Denver Broncos. I think she's trying to get Jim Harbaugh. That's another thing we haven't even talked about tonight. Jim Harbaugh. Those comments back and forth where Ono, the Michigan president, says something like to the effect of, just want to let everyone know that me and the athletic director, we are feeling good about our conversations with Jim Harbaugh. And I don't, basically it was nothing much. And then Jim Harbaugh responds and says, I just want to let everyone know that I support the president's comments. I don't know, it's just so weird. It's always weird with Jim Harbaugh. Great coach. They screwed up in that playoff game, but great coach overall, but he's just an odd duck. Really. People say PJ Fleck is an odd duck. I tell you what, he does. Jim Harbaugh, man, he's something else. Jesse Wilson, I heard that Washington quarterback, yes, he entered the transfer portal. No question about it. He entered the transfer portal. I think, was he number 3 or number 4 in line at the Washington Huskies? So, yeah, it was probably a good deal that he entered the transfer portal. LFG, if I'm the Big Ten, I'm offering Oliver Luck, who lived and played in Indianapolis. Shut up and get out. Nice to see you in the house. Get John Swarford. He's rested. He's not going to be a candidate, I don't think. Cornelius Green, Florida State is my pick to win the ACC. Miami should be better than they were last year. I agree, Mr. Green. Florida State is my way too early prediction to win the ACC championship. I think they should be rated like number 4, number 5 in the country in the way too early polls. I love Florida State for next year. Love them. Cornelius Green, I feel even strongly that the Bears will build their new stadium in Arlington Heights. I think it's going to be in Chicago. But, I'm not sure, but isn't that the goal, that the stadium, their dome stadium, is going to be built in Chicago and not at Arlington Heights? Joe says Jim Phillips. We got to vote for Jim Phillips. Jason W., nice to see you in the house. I've heard some Big Ten members were not happy with Warren due to his expansion dreams. Yes, they did not approve of him going out in public, pushing so vocally to grab more schools before he got the votes lined up behind him. And most of the Big Ten presidents didn't want to take more Pac-12. There were some that did, some that didn't, but Warren made it so public before he could even attempt to build consensus. They were not happy with Kevin Warren for a number of reasons. We talked about it earlier on this show. The distrust. Kevin Warren could not get out of the hole that he dug himself with his lack of communication when it came to the decision-making process during the pandemic. His communication skills, it's not what these conferences need at this time. You need consensus building in these. As a conference commissioner, you need to be a seller. You need to sell your conference to your schools, to media companies, to sponsorships. You need to students across the country. As a commissioner, it's your job to sell. And while you're selling, you have to build consensus. And Kevin Warren, he sold a lot of stuff, but he did not take time to build consensus. Joe, Jim Phillips can advise the Big Ten on how to break up that grant of rights. Inside knowledge of his weakness. Plus has good relationship with ACC schools. I don't think Jim Phillips... How do I answer this question? How do I answer this comment? Okay. I am going to give you a little peek around the corner on something. Okay? I'm sorry. I know there's a lot of comments. I haven't gotten to them. But we got to talk about something. I'm not going to give you the December 26th story. I'm just going to give you something out there. If you want to treat this as speculation, you go right ahead and do what you want with it. Okay? I'll get you your comments. Jim Phillips can advise Big Ten on how to break up that grant of rights. I don't think, honestly, that Jim Phillips believes that the grant of rights can be broken. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think he does. But when you see some links out there on message boards, on Twitter, that the grant of rights, here's the grant of rights. It's a page and a half long, 2 pages long. Here it is. This is the grant of rights. The chances of that being the true ACC grant of rights is basically zero. The ACC grant of rights has not been named, has been not put out in public. The ACC grant of rights, the document that all these university presidents sign, understand this, that there was an ACC grant of rights signed in 2013. There was that went to 2027. There was an ACC grant of rights signed in 2016. And when the university presidents signed that 2016, the considerations they were given was the creation of the ACC network. That's the new grant of rights. So the grant of rights, the duration of the ACC grant of rights went from 2027 to 2036. That document is not out in public. In fact, there's a 99.9999% chance that none of us here in the chat room or viewing this channel has ever seen the grant of rights. The grant of rights is a document that is in a vault, literally, ACC headquarters, and there's only certain people that are allowed to see it. You can't take it with you. You can't take a copy with you. You can't take I'm not going to say anything else. You cannot. So what it says, how vague it is, how solid it is, it's hard for any outside lawyer to know that. Grant of rights as a grant of rights are developed not to be broken. So we at Peek Around the Corner have always said, don't expect anybody to be challenging or breaking their grant of rights. We've always said that. Or even trying, it's hard to overcome. No one has even tried to overcome it in college sports. But having said that, if you see someone say, I've read the ACC grant of rights and no, they can't be broken, or I have seen the grant of rights and it can be broken, you haven't seen the ACC grant of rights. You haven't seen them. It isn't out there for public display. And I'll say one more thing. I'll say one more thing about it. Then we're letting it go. For those who have seen the grant of rights, those who were led into the vault and everything, there's not a complete consensus on what it actually says. And then we'll leave it at that. Okay, let's get back to your comments. Again, I'm way behind. Not going to get close. Again, if you want to make sure we comment about your comment, do a deep dive in it, just attach it with a donation. Other than that, I'm going to get to as much as possible. A little off topic, son of Sick, but why isn't Minnesota the Alabama of the college hockey world? Great question, son of Sick. It used to be. It is to the point where most college hockey players come from the state of Minnesota. The state of Minnesota has 5 Division I hockey programs out of how many? 60 in total. And every school recruits in the state of Minnesota because, again, those are where the hockey players are. University of Minnesota basically is always the youngest team in the NCAA tournament. These other programs out there, they're playing 23, 24, 25-year-old guys, and the Gophers are playing 18, 19-year-old guys, and then they go to the NHL. It isn't apples. It is not an apples and apples comparison. University of Minnesota has a lot of advantages in the college hockey world over anybody else. The most money and all that. But Gopher teams they don't get to grow up and play as a third-year player and a fourth-year, and that's a huge difference in hockey. Just gigantic difference in hockey. So that's why the Gophers don't win the national championships like we expect. Minnesota Duluth, they've been winning them. They're always a lot older than the Gophers. That's one big reason why they're not the Alabama of the college world. Now the Gophers, they're the number one or number two hockey team in the country again this year. But we shall see if they can bring home the national championship. Blaze Bunny, got a question. Who actually believes UCLA called Big Ten on their own? Well, we can say, Blaze Bunny, by the way, thanks for coming in to peek around the corner. UCLA did call the Big Ten separately from the USC. Now, did UCLA get a call in the middle of the night from somebody at Fox Sports and say, hey, maybe you should call the Big Ten? That's a possibility. Did the Big Ten reach out to UCLA first? No. Did USC reach out to UCLA first? No. UCLA did call the Big Ten separately than USC. And we said that on March 31st. And in April 2nd, April 4th, and all those videos we had at Flug Empire. That intel, every part of the intel we were given was correct, including that USC called the Big Ten alone, not with anybody else. Texas and Oklahoma did call Greg Sankey together. But this was different. They called the Big Ten alone. LFG, Bud Elliott is down on Sun Belt Billy Napier. I used to think Napier was equal to Novell at play calling. I am wrong. I'm also down on Billy Napier. Quite honestly, I defended him all season. I predicted they'd go 6-6. They went 6-6. They got blown out in the bowl game. But who's your starting quarterback? Game 1 against Utah at Utah. Graham Mertz. I suppose it could be Jack Miller. It's not going to be, you're not going to put out Rashada there. Graham Mertz is going to be your starting quarterback at Florida next year. Yeah, suddenly I agree with Bud Elliott. I'm way down on Napier and what he's trying to do at Florida. Jesse Wilson, Rebecca going back and forth on Washington. Only offensive guys Washington lost is the running back, 3 offensive linemen. Rebecca, 8 of 11 starters back on offense. Odunze is coming back. That was announced yesterday officially or the day before. Rome Odunze, I love him. He's going to be an outstanding NFL receiver. Him coming back with Michael Penix. That's why Washington is my way too early Pac-12 champion prediction for 2023. Are there power brokers in the Big Ten besides the presidents and the athletic directors? I don't use the term power brokers, but there is the money perch. Big Ten money perch. People with money. They have stronger and stronger influence over these institutions and slightly over these conferences. Rebecca. Running backs that transferred into Washington are big, physical, fast runners. Kai Ray, nice to see you in the house. Greg, no doubt the Big Ten presidents don't want to add schools unless they add money to per school payouts. That's why Kevin Warren bounced, in my opinion. True. No doubt about it. Big Ten schools do not want to take a smaller slice of the pie. I do think they could have gotten Oregon and Washington at much of a discount, right? And I don't think the slices would have been reduced. I just think, first of all, how Kevin Warren went about it, they did not like. Second of all, they did not agree with the vision. The Big Ten, they want to go to the southeast, to the eastern part of this country again, where the players are, where the recruits are, the demographics, the growing population, and Fox Sports, their college sports portfolio on the East Coast and the southeast part of the country is very, very bleak, right? I think Fox Sports is going to want to, they're saying it to the Big Ten. Look, if you're going to expand, Notre Dame, southeastern United States. LFG, to clarify, USC 247 podcast said twice, quoting Trojans athletic director Bone, and all options, including USC leaving the pack, was an option. June and September 21st. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Bone was talking about that a year before. No doubt about it. The point is, in the spring of 2022, USC called the Big Ten to start it going. It didn't start in 21, it started in 22. Will Doot, Janek is the same guy as McViver. 3, Will Doot, nice to see you in the house. Wild Doot, Wild Doot, smash that like button. Thanks, Wild Doot, appreciate it. The Utah Utes get back. Cameron rising again for 2023. Pac-12 is going to be fun to watch next year. Fun to watch. Rebecca, Tony, that piece of legislation is expected to die in the committee. Since the two schools are not under the same umbrella, it might be unconstitutional state. What Rebecca is referring to is there's a bill that was brought forth by 2 legislators in the state of Washington saying that Washington and Washington State would have to be together in any conference. They'd have to stick together, and they would have to get approval from the legislator for both of them to bounce to a different conference other than the Pac-12. I can't imagine that passing in the state of Washington. I don't know why these politicians want to put an albatross around the necks of these universities' decision makers. Why do they? I'm not going to get into it too much. Don't want to get into politics. But I hope, Rebecca, that you are correct. Ray, it's going to be Notre Dame and Stanford the next round of expansion, if and when Notre Dame decides to join the Big Ten. Stephen Snook, when are you breaking the story you have teased us lately? We believe this spring. Daniel, springtime. JB Bruin, Washington State, different than UCLA and UC Berkeley. They really have one system with many other locations. Skipping down some comments here. Jesse Wilson, my only concern is Washington's defense. Washington's offense is going to get some 50 points a game next year. It's going to be fun to watch. Explosive. Cornelius Green, it'll be interesting to see who becomes the Ohio State president. Absolutely. Danielle Dilly, injuries in the secondary was Washington's downfall. Jesse Wilson, man, it's going to be fun in the Pac next year. No question about it. I could see Northwestern's president, Michael Schill, being an influential figure in the Big Ten. This is from Cornelius Green. Daniel, Oregon and Washington add value above the median. Only a few schools in the Big Ten account for the majority of its revenue. Indiana, Purdue, Northwestern, Illinois, Iowa, Minnesota aren't. I don't know if I would put Iowa in that. Iowa's, I believe, is definitely a tier above those other schools in regards to value for the conference. Minnesota has that big market, right? But Minnesota doesn't have the fan base as the other schools, along with Indiana, Purdue, Northwestern. Illinois is kind of a mix on that. LFG for Big Ten commish, no to Phillips and Silverman, both mid. Okay, what about Gene Smith? It's got to be somebody. It's got to be somebody. Rebecca Kliakoff for Big Ten president. Rebecca's going to put that in the comments section every single live show until it's announced. And if it is announced, Kliakoff, Rebecca, I'm flipping the table. I am flipping the table, ladies and gentlemen. Trying to get to as many comments as possible, ladies and gentlemen. Buckshot Kid, nice to see you in the channel, sir. Your story is the ACC schools having enough votes to dissolve the grant of rights. That is not our story. That is not our story. We actually, well, it doesn't matter what we think, right? It matters what the ACC schools think, but that is not our story. We don't actually there is a couple of issues around the theory of 8 schools being able to dissolve the conference, 8 schools saying no, we're out of the conference, and then that dissolves the conference because the ACC won't exist. Therefore, the ACC conference won't hold the grant of rights. Therefore, the schools would get their individual media rights back. There's a couple problems around that theory. There are very smart people who think that theory could happen, that's its actual viable scenario. There's smart people on both sides of the aisle. We happen to think it's not viable. One of the reasons why we think it's not viable, besides the contractual agreement with the people who got the distribution right of ACC content, which is ESPN, Disney. There's another reason that we don't think it's viable. That kind of sort of links to the December 26th story that we can't talk about yet, is if there is an ACC school, or 2 of them, or 3 of them, or 4 of them, or 5 of them. Want to go up to 8 of them if you want. But let's just keep it simple. And let's say there's an ACC school in which their lawyers are saying, this is something that we can do, we can challenge, we can attempt. That ACC school is not going to communicate with other ACC schools. They're in their silos on this. They cannot be accused of collusion. They cannot be found to have colluded with each other. And that may or may not be tied to the December 26th story. Okay? So, we will go on. Monavision. It's Gene Smith. Daryl Turner loved the Nittany Lions to be Joe Burrow's LSU Tigers of 2023. Daryl Turner, I'm all about the Nittany Lions. As long as Drew Aller is the guy. If he's the guy, if he's actually the guy at quarterback, Daryl Turner, I'm all about Penn State. They're my way too early Big Ten champions for 2023. That running back duo, Penn State, baby. Penn State, Penn State, Penn State. I agree with Mr. Turner. Daniel, Greg, put up a poll on Twitter with your top 4 candidates. Top 4 candidates for what, Daniel? For Big Ten commissioner? Let me know if that's what you if that's what you're getting at. Okay, just trying to get to some comments here. Rebecca, ACC will kick 2 schools out and add Washington and Oregon. Don't think ACC schools are kicking anybody out. Don't think that's a possibility. But you know what? I am okay. At this point, what day is it? January 12th? January 13th? January 13th. Oh, it's Friday the 13th. Well, let's just go ahead and speculate that. I'm okay with this crazy notion of Washington and Oregon thinking outside the box. Giving ACC a call. I don't think that's happening, but I'm okay with the crazy speculation of what Washington and Oregon, what can they do together to help themselves out, to try to get unequal revenue sharing in this Pac-12 deal. Something. Washington and Oregon have to be banging the drum on something. And the speculation, let it go wild. I'm not going to poo-poo any of it. ACC kicking 2 schools out, don't think that's going to happen. That's a little bit beyond my wild speculation that I would be okay with in regards to Washington and Oregon's options. I would love to know if the Pac-12 presidents have seen anything from Kliavkoff. As Rebecca have said, the Washington president is basically, she's the leader of the Pac-12 presidents right now. They rotate that leadership position. I don't know what they call it, Rebecca, but she's the one that she probably see the Pac-12 media deal first before any other Pac-12 presidents see it. I would love to know if Pac-12 presidents have even seen anything, any numbers from Kliavkoff in regards to what currently ESPN and Amazon is offering. I mean, we just went through another week of this. where these Pac-12 schools, there's no deal. At least that we know of. I mean, what is the holdup? Is there somebody jumping in at the last moment? I know these are difficult and complicated negotiations. The Big Ten kept extending. You know, they were supposed to have their Big Ten deal signed, sealed, and delivered, announced in the springtime. And then that USC thing happened. And no one knew it about at the time. We told people, but it got. Why is the Pac-12 deal keep getting pushed? What is the hang-up? Ted, Mr. Fight in the lineup. Maybe Harbaugh will throw his name in the hat for commissioner. Seems to be tied with every other opening. Rebecca, they have seen something and have a ballpark number, but are working out details with another partner and selling statistical data to MGM or Caesars. Yeah, the statistical data, sending real-time information to the sports books, that's a separate deal than the media money. That has to be a separate negotiations. I don't think that's playing a part of the holdup. And every single conference is doing the same thing. In fact, there were a lot of articles last year on the Pac-12 trying to do the same thing last year. In fact, they hired a consultant group to do the negotiations for them. And then it was reported that Kliavkoff at the time was waiting for all the Pac-12 presidents to give their okay for this consulting group to start the negotiations with the sports books. So they're all going to get this extra revenue stream in regards all these conferences. Now, the big story of that, Rebecca, for me is Notre Dame. No question, I think at some point they will sell their real-time information to a sports book and get some money package for that. But when you talk about these deals, whether it be media, sponsorship, conference sponsorships, real-time data, selling it to sports books, it all becomes more valuable when you bundle it all together. And Notre Dame can't bundle it together with anybody else. Unless they want to build some consortium, some sort of agreement with other independent football programs, such as Army. I don't know. There's not many out there anymore. Again, another revenue stream. Big 12 expansion still happening. The chalk, the favorite, and it's always been this, is that the Pac-12, 10 schools would hold together. I think the chances of Colorado joining the Big 12, I don't think there's much of a chance at all. After listening to Rick George's statements, holy smokes. He's talking about, okay, so he was on Wilner and Kazano. We did an episode on this at Peek Around the Corner. Rick George, athletic director, actually said, why would we join a conference of 16, 18 schools when we can stay in a conference of 10 or 12 schools and have an easier path to the college football playoffs? That's great for a fan to say that. But for an athletic director whose job is to increase the value of their athletic department, who's the front porch of the university, for an athletic director to actually say that is astonishing. And it's horse and buggy type of thinking. And I was surprised Rick George said that. I don't know if he was playing up to Wilner and Kazano in that interview. You don't make conference realignment decisions for your universities depending on how many schools your conference has versus another conference. Texas and Oklahoma made the decision to leave the Big 12 to go to the SEC because they perceive the future how it really is. They perceive that it's more valuable for the student athletes and their programs to be in the SEC conference for exposure, for everything, right? They didn't go to the SEC. Texas and Oklahoma didn't go to the SEC because they thought it would be easier to win their football conference versus the Big 12. USC and UCLA did not call Big 10 alone, independently from each other. Oh, it's easier to win the Big 10 football conference championship. Therefore, we should call them athletic directors, serious athletic directors who are thinking about their football program, their baseball program, their bottom line, their dollars and their exposure. They're not thinking about how easy it is to win a college football champ. They're trying to better their university by bettering their athletic department. That's what serious athletic directors are supposed to do. So when Rick George, the reason why I went so aggressively at Rick George, well, let me put it this way. I don't think there's any doubt anymore that Rick George, the Colorado athletic director, has had conversations with the Colorado president. Again, my speculation. But I don't think there's any doubt anymore that those conversations were Colorado's president saying, yeah, we're not going to the Big 12 for reasons A, B, and C. A lot of them are good reasons. Colorado, more in line with the other Pac-12 universities. More in line as a university with the Pac-12. A growing number of students of Colorado going to the University of Colorado comes from the state of California. Good reasons for Colorado not to join the Big 12. I think there's some positive reasons that they should, but there's some really good reasons why they shouldn't and they won't. So Rick George is getting this information from the Colorado president, and then he goes on the show and says, well, one of the reasons because we don't want to be in a conference of 16 to 18 versus 10. Just a ridiculous statement. So here at Peek Around the Corner, we call it like we see it. No strings attached. Colorado, the chances of them going to the Big 12, you can say, I think it's close to zero with that type of statement coming from Rick George. Again, we shall see what the Pac-12 media rights deal is all about when we finally do see it. Daniel Montecastle. I was in South Bend last Friday. I saw the Golden Dome for the first time. I was surprised how far north it is. It's not even in South Bend, but just north of it. Again, let's go back to Gene Smith. Let's take Daniel Montecastle's statement, and let's talk about Notre Dame. We haven't talked about Notre Dame in a while. Gene Smith, if Gene Smith is hired as the Big Ten commissioner, what does that mean in regards to the Big Ten ongoing and forever pursuit of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish? Gene Smith and Jack Swarbrick are like this. Gene Smith, an alumni of Notre Dame. Gene Smith, no one talks to Jack Swarbrick more from the Big Ten than Gene Smith. The hiring of Gene Smith, what would it mean in regards to the pursuit of Notre Dame? Put down your comments. Put down your comments. What do you think? I know if Gene Smith is named, people are going to be focusing on that. There is nobody who has more tighter relationships with the leadership of Notre Dame than Gene Smith that sits in the Big Ten right now. According to this screen, I bet you Utah Athletic Director Mark Harlan is keeping his options open as far as conference affiliation goes. Again, I think Mr. Green, I think Rebecca, at this point in time, as we sit here on January 13th with no Pac-12 deal done, I'm open for wild speculation on Utah, Oregon, Washington, and somebody else possibly forming a group saying, hey, look at us, ACC, look at us. Trying to figure something out. I mean, at this point in time, I ask this question every time we do a live show. Why hasn't... Now, Rebecca did answer. You know, she believes that the Pac-12 presidents might have gotten the numbers. Maybe she's correct. But man, we're talking January 13th right now, and there's a vacuum created. Somebody's going to fill that vacuum. Is it going to be Brett Yormark? Greg, who do you have in the way too early PATC Big Ten Championship game? I got Penn State versus blank. Big Ten West. I suppose that Wisconsin will be the chalk when it comes to Vegas, when it becomes to sports writers. There's so much change going on at Wisconsin. Luke Fickell grabbing the North Carolina's offensive coordinator Longo, and all those receivers they're going to be throwing the ball more in Wisconsin than in my 54 years on this planet. It's going to be weird. It's going to be crazy. I don't quite understand it. You know, they're going to be coming up to Minnesota. Minnesota's won 2 Axe games in a row against Wisconsin. They're coming to Minnesota third week in November, and they're going to be coming there with a pass-happy offense. Oh, good luck with that. I don't know. And then you got Illinois coming off a great year, almost won the Big Ten championship. But their quarterback position, they got Altmaier from Ole Miss. Luke Altmaier, is that good enough? They lose Chase Brown, their great running back. You got Purdue. New Walters, new coach. Hudson Card, transfer from Texas. The Big Ten is just so full of change. It's crazy. It really is. I don't know. I have no idea. I think you got Matt Rule in Nebraska. Doing great in the transfer portal. You got PJ Fleck. I don't know. They just picked up a great running back from Western Michigan. They flipped him from Oklahoma State. He was committed to Oklahoma State. And he was run for over 1,000 yards 2 years in a row, Tyler. And he's committed to Oklahoma State from the portal, but didn't quite go to a class yet. In the last second, he flipped to Minnesota. Minnesota got 2 wide receivers. They never thought they were. I have no idea what's going to happen in the Big Ten West. No idea. My way too early prediction is a 6-way tie for first place. Northwestern is in second place all alone. Tiebreakers, flip a quarter. Iowa. Iowa versus Penn State. That is my way too early prediction. 6th place tie. Skolducky. Luke Fickell has a crazy good football brain and as tough as rocks. Him and Luke Fickell and PJ Fleck are already going at it with each other. Man, it's going to get heated next year. Heated. Ted, Illinois defense is going to be good again. The offense has some question marks. Daniel, who is your surprise team from each division? Well, I've got Penn State. I've got them winning it. I think that's a surprise. Wouldn't you? I think most people will have them coming in third place. I got them winning the division. Maryland would be my next team on that list. And the Big Ten West, it's 6th place tie for first place. Oh, you guys are killing me. Tony, Not the Gophers. Next thing I know is you'll be singing the Iowa fight song again. No! Please smash that like button if you like our content. Subscribe to our channel. Please subscribe to our channel and share the video with your family and friends. If you want to do a donation to the channel, just hit that $sign to the chat. Appreciate all you guys. Gary, any smoke on the amount of conference games for 2024? A 10-game conference schedule with no rivals work out nice. Yeah, from the Nittany Lions perspective, Penn State, that's what they want. That's what they want. 10-game conference schedule with no rivals works out nice. You know what? There is no more smoke because we don't even have really a commissioner now. Who gets announced will give us the smoke. I mean, Gene Smith, if you go back and if you parse Gene Smith's comments of the last year, he's really sold on divisionless football for the Big Ten. Now, of course, that's the favorite. That's the chalk. We all think that's going to happen. But Gene Smith is really for no divisions. Penn State is really for no divisions. Gene Smith has got Penn State's back. It's going to happen, right? The 9 to 10 conference games, and we know that's being up for debate. We know people have been talking about it. If you go back, if you read Gene Smith's comments, he's for 9 games. In fact, he said, I would even be for 8 conference games. But he says, we know we can't do that because we need to have enough inventory for 2024, 25, 26. Because we have so many media partners, so many good exposure spots. But Gene Smith did say, there are a couple of us, I'm paraphrasing, I'm not saying it exactly right. Gene Smith did say there's a couple of us who want 10 conference games, who keep mentioning 10 conference games, and we're going to keep talking about going to 10 conference games. Now, I don't think it would behoove the Big Ten to go to 10 conference games when the SEC still haven't made the decision to go to 9 games. I think once SEC goes to 9, Big Ten will probably take that issue up for consideration more seriously again, whether they should go to 10 conference games. But the new Big Ten commissioner, people talk about the issue of further expansion, where they're going to go, how they're going to do it, what happened in 2027, 2029. There's a whole list of other issues that has to get decided on. And somebody has to take the Big Ten interest into the lion's den of the battle of 2026, the gold rush of 2026. Someone's going to have to push Big Ten's interest. I just think it's going to be one of those 3. I could be wrong. Joe, thank you for your donation. I appreciate your generosity, helping us keep the lights on here at Peek Around the Corner. Joe, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so very much. Again, trying to get to your comments as quick as I possibly can. Daniel brings up a good question. Hudson Card, who's he going to throw to and who is going to protect him? Very good points. Very good points. Rebecca, I have Washington and Oregon playing in Vegas for the Pac-12 championship game. I got Washington there. Don't know about Oregon. I know Bo Nix made me look foolish with my early season predictions. I picked Utah to win the Pac-12 championship. That's the one thing I got right out of a whole list of things I got wrong in my predictions. And I didn't think Bo Nix was going to have this good a season. He did. He was great. But again, I'm starting to lean towards Oregon not quite making it there. We shall see. Oregon's going crazy in the transfer portal, just like the Huskies did earlier in the portal. We shall see. Daniel, I have Illinois doing a good job, doing a job again next year and defying the odds. I have Maryland getting to 10 wins. Wow. Daniel's coming in hard with the Terrapins prediction. Yeah, I think Michigan State's in trouble. Daniel, I think Supreme Omega, our friend in Spartan Land, is in trouble. Cornelius Green, I like the NBC broadcast team for the Big Ten games. Blackledge is one of the best analysts, and Noah Eagle is one of the best young upcoming commentators. Has a chance to succeed Chirico. Yeah, I was kind of surprised by Blackledge becoming part of the NBC commenting team. That kind of shook me a little bit. Noah Eagle, I'm all for. Love his father. Noah's got great skills. 26 years old. I think he's going to be outstanding. So mostly, Mr. Green, I agree with you. Danielle says, I agree with Cornelius. Rebecca, way too early college football playoffs. Alabama, Washington, Penn State, Florida State. Rebecca, you just stole my way too early college football playoffs. I've also got Bama, Washington, Penn State, and Florida State. However, it might be Georgia, Washington State, Penn State, Florida State. But either way, Washington, Penn State, Florida State are in my playoffs. Rebecca and I agree. And Rebecca, I'm sorry, but I am Greg the Cooler. So I just destroyed your way too early college football playoff predictions. I'm sorry, Rebecca. I'm sorry I had to do that. Gene Smith as commissioner, 10 conference games are dead on arrival. Most likely. Most likely. Until the Big Ten expands again, years down the road. Cornelius Green, I would like to see SEC teams travel more to play more out-of-conference games and less neutral site games. I would say this, Mr. Green. I would say this. SEC, best football conference in the country. Not even close. Most powerful college athletic conference. Right? They got so much going for them. There's two things though, man. SEC, they got to go to 9 conference games. They got to get rid of that, week 10, week 11, that late season non-conference games where they're playing Citadel. It is flat out embarrassing. And I think Nick Saban is embarrassed by it. He keeps pushing. Let's get rid of that game. Let's go to 9 conference games. It's embarrassing to see that. And, we can talk about Sonny Dykes, the head coach of TCU. He did a great job. He talked about it. And I know he's not crying over spilt milk. They got beat. They got beat by a better team. No question about it. They got thumped. But this whole idea of SEC, that schedule, late in the season, when TCU is grinding with another conference game late in the season, where all these teams are just grinding to get into their their conference championship games. They're going on the road to playing a conference rival. And Alabama's playing Citadel late in the season. I mean, it's basically a break. It doesn't fly with me at all. I think SEC really has to change that up. I do think it's embarrassing. Okay, Ted corrected me. The Bears want to build in Arlington Heights, but they would own the venue outright, not share with the city of Chicago. Thank you, Ted. I just thought the goal was to get that dome built in Chicago. And I know there's people wanting Arlington Heights. I'll have to read about that, but thanks, Ted, for correcting me. Appreciate it. Son of Sarek, if Maryland gets to 10 wins, I'll eat my shoe. Ooh, we could have the first shoe eaten in the history of Peek Around the Corner next November in the chat room, Son of Sarek. Jesse Wilson, my Washington Huskies will win at least 8 or 9 games. Absolutely. Rebecca has Alabama winning the SEC because ESPN angered Saban with Georgia taking over the conference and country talk. Son of Sarek, I'll go with Georgia, Ohio State, USC, and Clemson for the playoff teams. Cornelius, I like to see Alabama play USC at the Coliseum. Tony, Maryland has to have their quarterback come back. I believe he's coming back. Ted, the city offered the renovation to a dome as a chance to keep them from moving. Got it. Thank you, Ted. Rebecca, Greg, you're gonna need live correspondence starting next year. I am thinking about opening up a phone line to take calls for you guys to talk on the show. Give me a yes if you want phone lines to be part of the show, or give me a no. I know some people, sometimes it slows down the conversation if you have phone lines. If we do have calls coming in, I would have to make them short. I would I don't know how long, like 2 minutes, have a shot clock on it. I do know that people generally do like phone lines if it's done right. If we do go to phone lines, I think we do it pretty soon here. It was a question I meant to ask in the last live show. So give me a yes or give me a no. Just let me know what the chat room thought. We would still hit the comments hard. I go through the comments as fast as possible. So give me a yes, give me a no. Thanks. Appreciate it. Jesse Wilson is a yes. Patrick Henry, nice to see you in the house. That's a yes. Ted, I don't use that feature on my cell phone. Gary is a yes. USC kept their defensive coordinator, and that defense cannot tackle. Yeah, USC is going to have to. They're going to have to improve greatly on defense for next year and when they go in the Big Ten. Gary, Penn State will make a run, but Michigan is still the team to beat. Penn State needs to be bigger at defensive tackle, and Aller will need some seasoning. Drew Aller, yeah, we really don't know about him, do we? But I think Penn State, man, Michigan is stacked next year, absolutely stacked. We'll see who the head coach is, though. We'll see who their head coach is. Cornelius Green, Lincoln Riley coach teams that are soft defensively. So far, that is true. Those Lincoln Riley teams in Oklahoma, it's not so much the soft part. It's that their secondary was so small and couldn't tackle. I guess that's part of being soft, right? Year after year, he recruited the same type of players in Oklahoma. The secondary was brutal. So I don't know who Lincoln Riley, we talk about his defensive coordinator. I don't know who they've got recruiting for the secondary, but the Trojan secondary, they had to get better. And Lincoln Riley's going to have to change it up in how he recruits, how he develops, or both in his secondary. That is something that has to happen for USC. Rory McNamara says no. Wild Oot, yes to phone lines, but limit phone calls to 30 seconds so no one drags on and on. Daniel says yes. Daniel, peek around the corner crisis. Daniel Montecastle, the Peek Around the Corner Crisis Hotline. I think that's what we're going to call it. The Corner Crisis Hotline. Absolutely. Jesse Wilson, LOL. It's a good one, Daniel. Ted, only if I can say I'll hang up and listen. Absolutely. You can say that. Daniel, I'll put down my beer down before I call. Thank you so much. First time caller, long time listener here. All right. You know what? I think we're going to make an executive decision right here on January 13th at about 7 p.m. 2 hours into our show. We're going to get a phone line in here at Peek Around the Corner. You guys can call in and we'll figure out the time, how long a phone call can be. So expect phone lines in here soon. We're going to go with it because ultimately this show is for you guys. You guys direct the show. If you want phone lines, we're going to do the phone lines. And if it works beautifully, if you guys say this is ridiculous, Greg, you are horrible at moderating phone lines, get rid of it, then we'll get rid of it. Because you guys direct the show 100%. Cornelius Green, Lincoln Riley coach teams are prone to being out physical at times. Will Wild Oot, nice. Rebecca, I'll ensure that I only call on game days. After a few hours of tailgating on the lake. You can call anytime, Rebecca, anytime you want. So we're going to wrap it up here. It's been 2 hours. 2 hours of Peek Around the Corner. We've talked Big Ten commissioner. Who's it going to be? Those are my three. I haven't changed it yet. That's my Big Ten Commissioner Hot Board List 1.0. Tomorrow could be a 2.0. Who knows what's going to happen on Saturday, on Sunday, on Monday. We still got Pac-12 media deal to go through. There's so much going on. So stick with us here at Peek Around the Corner. Thank you all for coming. Before you leave, can you please smash that like button? It helps with the algorithms of YouTube so much. It helps to give this the smallest YouTube channel of all college football, Peek Around the Corner, just a little bit more exposure if you smash that like button. Share the video with your family and friends, and please subscribe to our channel. It's not going to hurt you. It's never going to hurt you if you subscribe to our ever-growing channel. Until next time, from all of us at Peek Around the Corner to all of you, please, please, you all take care of each other. Thank you so very much. Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate it.